Thưa quý vị, một người từng nghĩ đến cái chết, nay trở thành một người truyền cảm hứng, một nhân vật tuyệt vời có ảnh hưởng tích cực đến xã hội nước Mỹ. Nhờ vào điều gì mà cuộc đời anh đã được biến đổi một cách diệu kỳ? Tố Uyên xin mời quý vị cùng đến với chương trình Today Saved by Grace với khách mời đó là Jeff Morgan. Kính mời quý vị khán thính giả đón xem và mong quý vị sẽ có câu trả lời cho chính mình.
Well, Jeff, thank you so much for coming here today because after I saw your interview over a month ago, I was so thrilled. I was thinking to myself, I need to invite you to come on the show and share this amazing experience that you went through. But one of the most important topic that you mentioned in this testimony I watched over a month ago was the fitness part and the dieting part, how important it is in our daily lives. So, first of all, thank you so much. I want to say thanks for coming on to the show. How are you?
Oh, I'm great. I'm great. Thank you so much for having me here. It brings me a lot of joy to be able to talk about what God has done in my life, what He has done, not what I have done.
Right.
So this is a great experience. Thank you for having me out, Victoria.
Well, thank you so much, and I thank God for bringing us two together to talk about this very interesting testimony. I have to start out with the first part is about your diet and your fitness. You shared in your testimony recently that you stopped eating meat. I would say over 5 years ago and completely changed your diet.
Right.
What inspired you to go on a plant-based diet?
Then I was suffering from certain health issues, and when I was younger, I was really fit and relatively healthy, but my diet kind of caught up to me. I just didn't know it was my diet at the time. I just thought something's happening to me on the inside. You can see it in my skin. I can feel it. I'm inflamed. My body hurts. And this is around 40 years old where I started to really feel like I was breaking down. And I couldn't really work out that much anymore, which I love to do. I love to go to the gym and just push heavy things around. I love to
lift weights?
Yeah, and run up hills and do stuff like that. I love exercising. I've been doing it since I was 12, and I'm 47, so that's 45 or 35 years of exercise.
Wow.
So when my body started to break down, I tried to figure out what the problem was by adding different foods to my diet. I would find the latest superfood craze, you know, wheatgrass juice or coconut oil or something, and I would drink them and put them on my skin, and I realized that my health wasn't improving. And then my wife, she was so sweet because she was vegetarian for a while and she wanted to go on a plant-based diet, and she asked me if I wanted to do it with her. And I politely dismissed it and I said no, because I won't be able to maintain my muscles, you know.
Your physique.
And I was ignorant. I really didn't understand where nutrients come from and how they feed the body and so forth. And so she just started making dishes, and I was continuing to suffer from my issues. And so I finally decided to watch an interview. It was actually a lecture that she had recommended from a very famous plant-based doctor. And once I saw this video, I was so overwhelmed by his knowledge, I couldn't argue with it. And so at that moment, something changed in me, and then the next day I switched my diet completely to a plant-based diet. That was almost 5 years ago, and I haven't turned back since.
You don't crave for any burgers or pizza?
Oh, I do.
Oh, you do?
I do, but because I'm really sensitive now to it, my body responds so immediately to what I put into it. So if I have something that I'm sensitive to, or if I have something that my body has a hard time digesting, it will immediately show up on my face, and I'll feel it in my digestive system, and it'll last for a few days, maybe even a week. And so these symptoms really help keep me away from the desires that I have. I would call them more desires than cravings, because I understand where nutrients come from now. I've done a lot of research. And so if you have nutrients from plants and you have nutrients from animals, and the body needs the same thing from either one, then you have to weigh the balance. Does this do me harm? Does this do me good? Does this do me harm, or does this do me good? And so for me, I've always been a relatively disciplined person. So if I look at something and I say, this is going to do me harm and this is going to do me good, I'll just choose the good one, even if I miss the way this tastes.
Very interesting, because I've been hearing a lot of trainers who they say, you know, what you need most is eating lots of protein, because you need X amount of protein daily if you're going to work out, if you're going to lift weights.
Right.
and you need to eat lots of chicken, lots of fish, ground turkey, and so on. You've done all that, right? Yes, on the physical side, it helped you, but on the health side, it didn't help you.
Right, right. So there's a difference between health and fitness.
Mm-hmm.
And what I try to do is I try to bring both of those together. So being fit, you can look fit, but your diet could actually be eating you up on the inside. So building muscle and getting strong is not necessarily related to a healthy diet. The healthy diet actually helps you more because it actually promotes health while you're building muscle. And if you eat a really large quantity of animal protein on a regular basis, like we do here in the West, breakfast, lunch, and dinner, in between snacks, everything has animal protein in it. Then you're getting quantities that are very difficult for the body to continue to process on a regular basis. And so at some point the body will break down from overload. And that's what was happening to me when I reached 40. My skin was breaking out. I had what's called rosacea, peeling and itching and pimples on my face. And
I have that right now.
And I'm 40,
Right.
and I'm thinking, how am I? I'm still getting acne.
Pimples, right?
I'm like, am I 13? And so once I changed the diet, I realized that what I was putting in was the cause of these reactions. So I took it out, and those reactions, I would say 80% of them went away. Now there's a big epidemic of processed foods.
Yes.
People eat processed foods, so it's not all the animal products. It's processed foods, refined foods, a lot of sugar, a lot of white flour, a lot of refined things, and so we eat those, and then our body has a negative reaction to those too, and it breaks the body down over time as well. So it's not just the animal products, but I found that it was predominantly the amount of animal products that I was eating that when I took out my symptoms, some of them within 2 weeks disappeared. And I was
Wow.
carrying these symptoms for
Years.
decade.
Really?
Yeah, 10 years, 15 years.
Did you feel lighter as soon as you switched to plant-based diet versus animal-based?
Yes.
Suddenly your body just...
Yeah, because growing up as a gymnast and as an athlete, as a competitive athlete, I was always used to seeing myself in a specific way and feeling a certain way. So when all that started to change, I started to become self-conscious, and I started to, what's happening with me? This doesn't look like the guy that I used to be. And so once I changed the diet, any excess body fat just fell off.
Wow.
And I wasn't doing cardio, I wasn't running. I just went back to the gym and started training. I started to build muscle and get leaner, which is what everybody wants, right?
Right.
They want to be toned and fit, athletic, and they want to get lean, especially as they're getting older.
Yes.
So when these things started to happen, I wasn't expecting them.
Wow.
Just like we're probably going to get into, I wasn't expecting Jesus either. Right. He sure showed up,
When you least expect it.
Exactly. I wasn't looking for him.
Right.
So I wasn't looking necessarily to lose body fat and change in the ways that I did. I just wanted to feel better.
Yeah.
And so when I changed and then I started to feel better, I said something's happening here. So I'm just going to keep going and see how it goes. And so my wife and I, we did it. She was really happy.
Wow.
And so it took us about 6 months before we brought our kids into it.
Wow.
And it was a little bit scary for me at first.
Why?
Well, because I was so conditioned in the fitness industry that you have to have animal protein in order to be strong, to grow well, you have to have milk so you can have calcium, and all of these things that sound right, but are mostly just advertisements marketing to sell product.
So it's not true.
Well, no, it's obviously
With
not
children.
true. I have friends that have been vegan for over 30 years.
And they're fine.
They're not just fine, they're healthy and they're bigger than me.
Right. I mean, I'm saying they're fine in terms of, how we hear people say, you make sure your children drink X amount of glasses of milk every day because
Right.
if you want to grow tall, you want to be strong. Well,
Right.
you don't need to drink milk to grow tall or be strong,
Right, right. So they have that example with me in the family.
Yeah.
So the kids, when they were younger, this was really cute. One of my older son, when he was, I think he was like 6, he saw one guy walking down the street with muscles, and he said, "Oh, he must be vegan." And I thought that's a great thing because he's coming from he wasn't brainwashed through his entire life to believe that he needed cow's milk and animal protein.
Right.
And so when you look at these foods, you ask, what do I need from them? Well, if I'm drinking milk for calcium and protein, what is the source of those ingredients? And so you look, if you just study just a little bit, it doesn't take just a little bit of research, you'll be able to find out that, you know, calcium is a mineral. It comes from the ground. It comes from the earth, gets sucked up by the plants. It's eaten by the animals and, you know, incorporated into their body. And the amino acids are in the plants that the animal eats. So the animal basically disassembles the amino acids or the protein that's in the plant and takes the amino acids and forms them together into their own specific protein that they need. And our bodies are designed to do the same thing.
Right.
So we just took out the middleman or the middle animal
That's
and just went right to the source.
Right.
And it's been wonderful for us. My kids were regularly sick. They had earaches, fevers, infections on a regular basis. Probably once every few weeks they would get sick. Being, you know, growing up with, you know, around a bunch of children and everything, things pass from child to child, and they would catch them. We thought, I guess this is just a normal development of the immune system.
Right.
And come to find out that once we took them off of the animal products, they didn't get sick anymore. And if they did, it was rare. And when they did, it was 1 or 2 days, and it was mild and just comes and goes. And it's been like that for 5 years.
Wow.
So for us, we've had proof. My parents did the same thing, and their health improved. My dad went off of medication at age 70.
That's amazing.
Yeah, off of medication.
Completely.
Yeah, yeah. Now his doctor has been cautious. So for his cholesterol, he gives him a quarter a serving every other day, I think it is, instead of a full dose every day or twice a day. So he's gone off, but his doctor says, you know, just in case.
Just in
And you know, he doesn't need it.
So not 100% like, you know,
Yeah.
trust in this new
Exactly.
plant-based diet.
Exactly.
Very interesting. Dạ vâng, thưa quý vị. Xin quý vị khán thính giả vui lòng giữ màn ảnh SVTN, chúng tôi sẽ trở lại trong giây lát.
Chúng tôi xin cảm ơn sự theo dõi trở lại của quý vị khán thính giả. Thưa quý vị, để tiếp tục chương trình, Tô Uyên xin mời quý vị khán thính giả xem buổi nói chuyện của chúng tôi với lực sĩ Jeff Morgan.
Let's continue on. When you mentioned your father, that he completely, because you are a prime example to your family, and so your parents saw you completely change in this healthy, you know, physically, mentally, spiritually, and so they're doing this, and then he doesn't need to take any medications anymore.
Right.
At the age of 70, all due to plant-based diet.
Right.
Are they 100% totally for it now?
Yeah.
No doubt in any.
Well, my father was on cholesterol-reducing medications, or what they call statins, for I think 30 years.
30 years?
Yeah, he was trying to reduce his cholesterol for 30 years
Oh my
through
gosh.
medication. And so it was always on his mind, and it always bothered him that it wasn't coming down to normal levels. And so once it did, within 3 months, 6 months, his cholesterol was below the average.
Wow.
Yeah, and so for him, that was all he needed. I've been doing it this way for 30 years. This did it within 6 months. I'm in. You know, because he wants to live longer and be healthy.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
So it was easy for him. So they've been on board forever, ever since. I mean, they have their little cheat moments,
Yeah.
and that's
And it's
fine.
okay.
Totally.
And it's okay. So, since you changed this new diet, your kids, to them, that's normal. It's not like something that, oh my gosh, it's a big deal, right?
Right.
And they don't crave, you know, food that has meat or fish or seafood, right? They're
Right.
just
No,
they don't think about it.
They don't. They were not sensitized or desensitized to the whole thing over time. So when they walk by the fish section, they go, ew, because it smells. And when they walk by the meat section, they go, ew, because it smells. They don't,
Right.
they don't like the way that it smells, and they understand that in this form, to them, it's not appealing. And so even if you cook it up, it's still that thing.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah,
and
yeah.
so what we did as parents is we decided to simply just educate them.
Yes.
This is what it is. This is where it comes from. They might call it this, but it's really that. So, you know, we make up words for things, like bacon. You know, and as delicious as it smells and tastes, and and everything, they know where it comes from,
Yeah.
and so they just simply don't want to eat it. Now, we don't put the pressure on them when they go out into social environments that they have to stay strict.
Yeah.
If they want to eat something, they can.
Optional for them.
Yeah, yeah,
Right.
they can.
And
So-
it doesn't affect their growth, right? Because society said you have to drink milk or you have to eat this, children have to do this in order to grow tall.
Right.
But your kids are prime examples that they're eating healthy and they're still growing fine.
Exactly. One of the ways I like to describe my children is they are lean
Mhm.
and strong. They're not lean and frail. They're not skinny and weak. They're lean and strong. So they're not carrying around extra weight. They don't hardly ever get sick.
Mm.
So their immune system is strong, and they have muscle tone
Wow.
at ages 10 and 7. And so it's really great to watch that. And I believe that that's how children were meant to be raised, not to be overweight so that they can grow as fast as they can and have overabundant resources within their body, so that they grow naturally
Yeah.
and normally. And if they are a little bit shorter than another child, don't look at it as, oh, they're undernourished. You can look at it as they're growing at their natural rate according to their own growth chart. And also we look in our family. Do we have tall people in the family? Do we have short people in the family? And our family is relatively short.
Mm.
Me and my older brother, my brothers are an exception, but my parents are shorter than we are. My wife's parents are shorter than I am. Her brother is short. So genetically we're relatively short. So if we look at my kids and say, oh, they're shorter than other kids, that comparison is really irrelevant.
And I often hear people say, well, eating diet is like 70 to 80% and working out is like 20 to 30%.
Mhm.
When they compare that, when they say that, they're thinking about eating right, like enough protein. No, I'm not talking about plant-based. I'm just saying like
Sure.
the general world out there. Do you agree with that? So now if you been just eating plant-based, which means your workout, you don't have to put so much effort into working out
Uh-huh.
7 days a week, 2 hours each day, because eating right is the biggest factor in staying healthy already.
That's right.
And your muscles, you have definitions, it defines your physique just by eating right and eating healthy.
That's right. That's right. So the eating part of it, and I once said this in one of my YouTube videos on my channel,
Yeah.
was if I could choose between working out and eating right, if I had to choose between the two of them, I would probably go kicking and screaming, but I would choose eating right. If I had to make the choice, between the two.
That's what I tell people.
Because I
too,
understand
yeah.
that if I eat right, then I can live longer,
Yeah.
and I can live better,
Yeah.
healthier. The quality of life for me will get better, but I'll also be able to be an example to my children. So, in many cases we see young kids growing up and the examples that they have with regards to not just health and wellness or health and fitness, but also spiritually. People are sick. They're physically sick, they're spiritually sick, and the kids are looking up at these people as the examples of what's to come. So I've always wanted to be, for my children, an example of health and wellness, and now having a real strong spiritual connection with God. I can now pass something down that I really feel confident about.
And I just love it whenever you mention God, because when we put God in the center of our life is just so much more joyful and at peace.
That's right.
It's when I saw your testimony over a month ago, I thought this was one of my favorite testimony over the last year and a half. There's so much, things I didn't learn. I've been hearing a lot of people talk about New Age and how they came out, but it's interesting how, when those people are in it, they don't know the difference when you're in it. You're deep in the New Age practice. You don't know your life is actually more miserable than when you come to Christ and suddenly your life is more happier and at peace and everything just so light, right?
Right.
And then when you raise your family, you have your family, you just feel now your life there's meaning to life and there's truth and there's joy, versus in the past you didn't feel like that, even though you have this beautiful family, but
Right.
you didn't have this happiness while practicing New Age. And for those Vietnamese people who don't know New Age, can you talk about a little bit about New Age?
Yeah, New Age is it's very difficult to define, but it's really based on gathering elements from different philosophies and different religions in a relative manner, making them your own, and doing everything that you can to, and there are some good elements to it, but those elements don't have to be tethered to the New Age movement. You know what I mean? So compassion, peace of mind, equality, ethics, morality. So the New Age movement is based a lot on Eastern philosophy. And the Americans love to take bits and pieces of other philosophies that they like, make them their own, and develop their own religion, which I like to call the religion of me. Which is really what it is, because you can't define it.
Right.
So you can look at Christianity, you can look at Judaism, and you can look at Islam and say, these are specific religions, and they have their basic principles. And you can look to them to see how you must behave in order to be one of them. But the New Age it's pretty abstract, and the concept is, okay, so do a lot of meditation, clear your mind, focus on positive things, don't entertain anything negative. Some of it gets into the occult and witchcraft, but that depends on if you're drawn to that or not. I wasn't, thank God. But mostly what I did was I spent a lot of time in meditation. I spent a lot of time in contemplation. I spent a lot of time in self-awareness, all with the desire to elevate myself to a higher spiritual plane in order to reach enlightenment. And what enlightenment was for me was a state of mind where I no longer feel pain. I feel basically what they say heaven is. And so in the New Age, you choose the spiritual practices that you like, you make them your own. Basically everybody is right. Everybody's philosophy is correct because it's right for them. So it's a relative kind of mind frame. And so over the years I took on this philosophy, I made it into my own, and I basically thought that because I was a good person, that no matter what I did, it was all okay. As long as I was striving to improve and evolve and become a better person. So if I hurt somebody along the way, it was okay. It was just a bump along the way towards my own evolution. And so I looked at, I hurt a lot of people in the past.
Don't we all, though? We all do.
We all do. Yeah, we all do. But I didn't realize that I was doing it because it was under the guise of progress. Oops, I made a mistake here. I did something very harmful to someone. I can learn from that, hopefully. But really, because it's a religion of me, there's no consequences to the behavior. There's no real deep consequences to the behavior, other than a little bit of friction between you and someone else, or a time period where you're struggling with someone else based on what you're doing to them or what you've done to them, and getting out of that situation, and then saying, oops, I did a lot of bad there. I need to maybe do it better next time. And most of the time, I didn't do it better next time because there was really no accountability to a higher power. Therefore, there wasn't much pressure in becoming a better person until I started having children.
So it's so interesting until you have children. That's when somehow you just realize it's not about you, your life. Everything you do is not about you anymore, but now it's about your children.
Right.
Is that like coming from a natural instinct, or do you think that's something that God is kind of slowly teaching you over the years?
That's a good question. I would have to say that it's the latter. I think it was God pressing on me to become something different than I was, because I even though I believed in what I was practicing with my meditation and my mindfulness and my kindness, and I didn't feel confident in passing that down. Because I was basically passing down the religion of me to them, and
in your soul you know that religion of me to your kids.
It didn't feel right.
Right.
And so when I started teaching them those things, and I did, this is how you meditate, this is how you're quiet, this is how you quiet your mind. The world is so noisy. Not that many kids know how to sit still. You guys will be able to know how to sit still. It'll be a wonderful asset to you. And then over time, I just really started to, my philosophy started to implode. It started to implode and break down from the inside because I realized that I was teaching them something, and over time I was becoming more and more anxious and fearful and depressed, frustrated with life because life wasn't working out for me the way that I thought it should based on my philosophy.
How long ago was this?
This was, once I started feeling this way, this was about 3 years ago. I started to really feel like something is not right with the way that my life is turning out. And if my practices, and like I said before, I'm a pretty disciplined person. So if I read how to meditate properly, if I study how to become more self-aware, how to do certain practices in order to bring peace and peaceful energy and the peace of mind that we're all looking for, that I would do those things. And I would do them correctly, and I would do them consistently, and I wasn't seeing any real progress. Now, I'm going to backtrack a little bit. When I was in my early 20s and mid-20s, it was great because I'm a single guy traveling around the world, and then I'd find a nice little place on a little mountain that I would just sit and meditate.
For how
And it
long?
felt great.
Back then.
I could meditate for anywhere between 5 minutes to 60 minutes at
Wow.
a time. There was a period of time where I was meditating for an hour and 30 minutes a day for 6 months straight.
Wow.
I would just sit and I would do some weird poses and do certain things because I was taught that those things will raise my vibration and my spirituality to a level that I can attract things into my life that I want. It's another way of saying the religion of me. What do I want?
Elevation, right?
Yeah, what do I want and how can I elevate myself?
Yeah.
And I look at it now as if you have someone that's drowning, that person who's drowning and can't touch the bottom and they have nothing to hold on to, they can't save themselves. They will not be able to save themselves if they're drowning. They need help. They need intervention, someone to be able to give them the hand and reach them out. And so as time went on, I started to feel like I was sinking below my ability to keep myself up emotionally, energetically, and the more pressure and the more responsibility that came into my life with getting married and having children and having a business and all the things that people have that cause stress, that philosophy was not standing the test of time. It was great when I was single,
Yes.
great when I was dating people,
Yeah.
because I could leave them anytime I wanted to. I was a free spirit, right? And so the problem with being a free spirit is that you're free, but you're also susceptible to evil forces, dark forces, things that can take advantage of you. But because, see, we think of freedom as I get to do what I want.
Yeah.
But real freedom is that I get to do what he wants.
Yes.
And there's joy in that because there's purpose and hope and all the feelings that are deep rooted that we really actually are looking for are found in him.
Amen.
Not in I get to do this thing for me.
In us, not in us, right?
It's not in us.
Right.
It's not in us.
It's so interesting. The teacher that you share on the YouTube video, you follow him for a very long time. And you mentioned that there were times when you hear voices in your head telling you do things or did things back then that you didn't want to do. And same with him too, right?
Yeah.
It's interesting how he went through that. Did it ever occur to you that that's not good? Why would you want to follow him? You don't want to get to that stage or to do things against your will. Like, did that ever occur of the 20 years you practiced New Age
Yeah.
movement?
Yeah, well, when practicing with him, there were many things that were great about it, and it was very enticing. Which what happens sometimes. Young kids, they'll meet someone who's very charismatic, and they want to follow them because they want to be like them. And a lot of kids will do that by watching people on television, and they'll take their mannerisms, they'll take the way that they dress and speak, and they will imitate them. And so this person I looked up to, I imitated. Now, he was clear to point out that the voices that he heard were audible voices, like you and I talking to each other right now. The voices that I heard were not necessarily audible, they were more impressions. So if I was walking somewhere and I felt an impression that I had to do something that came to me at that moment, I felt that if I didn't do that thing, that something bad would happen to me. And so over time, it just kept getting worse and worse. Now, I wasn't following him directly after a certain period of time. It was the first few years I was. But then I just went off on my own. But he was still there, you know, in the back of my head. And that influence was always there for me, which over time caused a lot of fear. Because I didn't know exactly who I should be listening to and where I should be getting my intuition from.
Did you ever thought about you should pray to someone out there, maybe to God, to help you remove this voice or this fear that in you now, that because it's getting stronger and stronger each day?
Yeah. I would just revert back to meditation. I'm feeling fearful. Well, let me quiet my mind and stop thought so that I can feel that peace. And every time I did that, I would feel peace for a few minutes, and then everything, all the thoughts and all of my habits would just come rushing right back in. And I thought, why is this not lasting?
Did you share that with your wife as you're going through this torturous phase in your life?
Yeah. It's a good word, because it became very torturous, because I felt that I was being oppressed and held on to by something that I didn't have control over. Why am I fearful? Why am I stressed out? Why have I lost hope in life? Is it just because I haven't accomplished certain things? Well, just work harder and keep going, you know. Like, you know, they say, just work a little bit harder.
Right.
Right? And that works for some people in this world, and for some other people it doesn't.
Yeah.
So for me, over time, I thought, this is failing me. I'm feeling worse and worse. Why? I want to know why. And so before I actually let it all go, which I didn't actually let go, it was taken from me. Before that happened, I actually went through a period of time where I was trying to actually ramp it up again, take it to another deeper level so that I could really hold on, because I just didn't want to admit that everything that I'd been practicing for the last 20 years was wrong.
False.
We don't want to say we're wrong.
Right.
And that's the human ego and pride is so strong within us that we don't want to say, even though I've been doing the wrong thing for 20 years and you've seen me do that, I was wrong. And one day, I just remember this, I was laying on the floor with my wife in our bedroom, and I had no hope left for life. And I didn't tell her this, but I was having some suicidal thoughts. I don't even want to be here anymore. I've tried so hard. I'm a disciplined kind of person. I've worked so hard in so many things for so long, and I haven't achieved anything that I really consider worthwhile on this plane. Now, I had my family, which was a huge blessing, because that was the thing that kept me alive. So looking at them, I said, well, I can't take myself out of this world because it would be too painful for them. So I said, I'm not that selfish. So I don't want to do that to them. I don't mind exiting the world, but I don't want them to have to carry that burden with them for the rest of their lives. So that kept me going.
Xin quý vị khán thính giả vui lòng giữ màn ảnh SBTN. Tố Uyên sẽ trở lại trong giây lát.
At that moment when you were lying there with your wife, did you share why life is so not good for us? Or you were just thinking to yourself, but you didn't really share out loud to your wife?
What I shared with her at the time was something that I was so hesitant to say for so long was, I have no idea what I'm doing.
Was she worried that someone heard that from you?
Of course, because she was worried that I was going to do something to myself.
Yeah.
So I looked at her and I said, don't worry. I won't do anything to myself. And inside my mind, I'm thinking, I want to, but I won't. But I won't.
Scary, right?
It's scary.
Yeah.
It's scary for her.
Yeah.
Because she's looking at the person who she looked to for strength,
Yes.
and to lead the family, completely broken.
Man of the house.
The man of the house.
Yeah.
And that was a really difficult point for me to be, because here she is looking at me completely broken, when I'm supposed to be lifting up and holding up the family. And so that was the moment that, and I'm crying really, really strongly. I mean, wailing.
Weeping.
Wailing.
Oh, wailing.
Yeah, I mean, I could say weeping like, sniffling and some tears, but I was crying
You didn't hold
passionately.
back. Right.
Passionately crying, saying, I don't know what I'm doing anymore. I'm a failure. And so I got to the point where I felt that I've completely failed. And not just them, but life. I don't know what to do anymore. And I broke down and I said, I don't know what to do. And I'm at the bottom. I lift up my hands.
Did you feel his presence there? Did you feel Jesus' presence there with you at that moment? Or you just...
No, at that moment it was surrender. And I didn't know who I was surrendering to.
He knew.
He knew.
He knew.
He knew that he had to break me
Yeah.
in order for me to allow him in.
Yeah.
And so I said, I don't know what I'm doing anymore. I surrender. I let go. And that was the turning point. Because over the course of a month and a half, life changed for me and my wife and my children 180 degrees. Jesus.
He's so gentle.
He appeared to me, he appeared to my wife, and he appeared to my older son all at the same time,
Yeah.
separately. These kind of things break marriages up.
Yeah.
One person comes to faith, the other person is an atheist. These kind of things break marriages up. People get divorced. This hurts people, comes in between relationships. But God was so good.
He knows your heart and he knows what you're yearning for. He knows your desire. And
Yes.
only you, your wife and your sons as well.
Right.
That's the best part of it, is that he knows when we are at the bottom and when
Right.
we cry out to him, when
Right.
we're so lost and broken, he just gently just come in and just lift us up.
Right, and I want to make a point that I wasn't looking for Jesus. My wife was not looking for Jesus.
None of you
We-
guys were looking for Jesus.
Right, we grew up in a Jewish family. Her parents are Jewish, my parents are Jewish, their parents are Jewish, everybody's Jewish. And most of the family loves being Jewish. Now, I had some resistance to it growing up, but most, they love to do the traditional Jewish ceremonies, and every once in a while maybe go to temple, and every Friday night have a Shabbat meal, and so this was ingrained in us growing up. And you're born Jewish, and so we weren't looking for Jesus. And in the Jewish religion, really, as long as you're Jewish, if you want to practice anything else, that's great. If you want to practice Buddhism, Hinduism, if you want to take some of Eastern philosophy, basically, as long as you're Jewish, and if you're doing those things, it's okay. And there's joy in that, not necessarily deep joy, but there's joy in that because you feel free to do what you want. It's kind of another version of the religion of me. And so Jesus was really the last thing we were looking for, which was why it was so powerful that he showed up to me and my wife and my older son at the same time, separately, meaning my son would go out, my wife would go out, and I would go out, and we would all have these moments where we would encounter something about Jesus. And over the course of a month and a half, we felt that we were being brought back to life through no effort
Wow.
of our own.
You're
And
giving me goosebumps right
that's the
here.
most amazing part, is that 20 years of effort, 20 years of practice and discipline, which is really what most religion is about. Practice, discipline,
Doing good works.
doing good works. And when you do those things, you really, and if you talk to anybody who's religious and you ask them, you've been doing this and this and this for this many years, are you sure about where you're going? And nobody can say, yes, I'm sure, because it's not up to them. Right? So then they know it's not up to them. It's up to the final decision of God.
Amen.
To choose for them, if their good outweighs their bad. And in my opinion, that's a very scary life to lead. So as Jesus is appearing to me in a book and in a television series and on on see a cross, and I'm being drawn in, and I meet people that are extremely pivotal. These encounters with people that were so obviously placed there to bring me into a relationship with Jesus that it was really undeniable. My wife was having those same experiences at the same time, and my older son was having those experiences, and he was 9 at the time. And so we all started coming together and having these great conversations about Jesus, and my wife was having a hard time with it because she wanted to remain Jewish, and she didn't understand how she can believe in Jesus, because they teach us that we shouldn't believe in Jesus.
Sad, right?
It is sad.
Yeah.
And how she can be Jewish and believe in Jesus. She had a conflict there.
That's what the enemy wants most people to do, is put that conflict in our mind.
Right.
So then they would draw us away from Jesus.
Right.
Instead of bringing us closer to him.
Right. And so a lot of our friends and family, they ask, well, why would you choose this? Why would you choose this way? When we know that it's not only not the right way, it's also a more difficult way. Why would you choose this? And we didn't choose it. That's the thing. We gave in to it.
Right.
We surrendered to it. But thank God it happened to us, and we were receptive. And I believe that Jesus is calling everybody. Yeah. Their degree of receptiveness or receptivity is different from person to person. And so some people, it just bounces right off of them, like it did with me 10 years ago. And some people are so ready for the word that they just say, reveal yourself to me, help me, I need you, I no longer have the answers. And then they are an open vessel for the Lord to come in and do his work.
Amazing.
Yeah.
So how has your life changed since Jesus comes into your life, into your wife and your sons? How have your lifestyle now, how has it been different after Christ versus before Christ during the New Age, and in terms of fitness and dieting, how that has changed your lifestyle now?
Yeah, well, when we talked before the interview started, you mentioned things that you wanted to get out of when you came to Christ.
Yeah.
And everything that I was doing at the time with fitness, with bodybuilding, with representing the vegan movement, I wanted to just get out of. I wanted to stop it all because I needed to clear off everything to make sure that it was what he wanted me to do. To make sure that it was in alignment with what God wanted for me, for him. And so basically I just disconnected from everything that I was doing for about 6 months.
Wow.
Just prayed. I just prayed. And normally I would meditate, but now I was praying. And I was talking directly to God. And I was praying in the name of Jesus, and who in Hebrew we call Yeshua. I was praying to him. We have an intimate now. We have an intimate relationship now.
Amen.
Yeah, and so I actually can talk to him through Jesus and through the Holy Spirit. And so I was just praying for about 6 months. What do you want me to do with all of this? I have a YouTube channel. I have tens of thousands of followers. I'm talking about things that I no longer want to talk about.
No desire, right?
Can you change this for me? And if you don't want to change it for me, help me get out of it. And so 6 months later, I just felt like I still need to do it. And so, for me, my channel, I wanted to kind of, God willing, evolve into faith-based. Instead of just plant-based.
Right.
Faith-based, plant-based lifestyle, because I believe in physical health. I believe in taking care of the body, the temple of the Holy Spirit, because a lot of people in this world are praying for health out of sickness. And a lot of the sickness is caused by dietary habits over the course of time. We have heart disease, we have certain things that people are suffering from, diabetes, and some of them are genetic. The food can ignite bad genetics, but it can also cool off bad genetics, light them up or turn them off. So I've noticed that happens, especially within me, when I eat something and my system lights up. I don't eat the thing and it doesn't light up.
Wow.
So we have the opportunity to take care of our bodies, to last longer on this earth, to have a greater impression on this earth, to do more of God's work on this earth. Now I believe we also all have a date with God that we cannot
Neglect.
and we can't change.
Yeah.
because he already knows us.
Amen.
He already knows what's going to happen. But there are people that are inspired to become healthier, and I think that's an important part of being a great example in doing the work of God in this world. So I was like that. You know, every few words was a foul, was foul language, and I would work out in the gym, and I would put my weights down, and I would say something, foul, because I would train so hard.
Right.
And it was just an expression. And through the New Age movement, people practice a lot on self-control, changing your behavior, changing your habits by working on techniques in order to do that. And over the years, those things basically just failed because they would last for a little while and then they would come back. And they would last for a little while and then they would come back. But overnight, I couldn't swear anymore. It wasn't that I was trying to and I didn't. I couldn't. So the swear words couldn't come out, and they felt wrong. It felt wrong. It felt like, and one of the best ways I've had it explained was when the Holy Spirit is indwelling you, which when you receive Christ, the Holy Spirit comes to live within you. And the Holy Spirit sanctifies you and purifies you, and that which is not in alignment with the Holy Spirit is dissolved, or you become convicted of it.
Right.
Right? This feels now wrong. And the Holy Spirit does that really well. And so not only did my relationship with my family change, the way that I relate to myself as a son of God totally changed. It gave me purpose, it gave me hope, it gave me a future.
Amen.
And really all I want to do is talk about Jesus.
For those who are watching this interview today, do you want to have a message you want to share with people out there who never heard of Jesus ever in their life? Ever? There are many tribes out there in the world. There are so many, or don't believe in Jesus because they think that Jesus is so strict, and there's this Christian religion where it's too complicated, like you said. Do you have a message for those?
Jesus is the way. And I know that now. I have found the truth and truth.
Amen.
And they are all under the name of Jesus.
Yeshua HaMashiach.
That's right. That's right. Jesus the Messiah. And so when you look at it that way, it's a very difficult decision, but at the same time it's a very simple decision. There's one way. If 50 different ways were laid out before you to ultimate riches, wouldn't you like to know the way? All of them were wrong but one. Wouldn't you like to know which one that is? Or would you like to have to get to the end of each one before you find? And that's what many people do. And that's what most people had to go through, and that's what I had to go through. I went through 49 different ways before Jesus showed me the way.
Amen.
And it's just a surrender.
Praise the Lord.
Praise the Lord.
Praise the Lord.
Yes. The Word of God is in the Bible. The Bible has been translated into more languages than I could even imagine. The Word of God is available to everyone. And if we are longing and searching and seeking for truth, one of the best things we can do is ask for revelation. Ask for help. Instead of I know, and he knows, and she knows, and I will gather what they say and do what they say, in your quiet space, ask for help. Ask for Jesus to reveal himself to you. He promises that he will. So I like to say that to anybody out there that's listening. Because everybody wants peace. Everybody wants to release the baggage that's been accumulated over the years. And that's possible through Jesus, and only through Jesus.
So true. Thank you so much, Jeff.
Khi cuộc đời chúng ta có Chúa ngự trị thì cuộc sống chúng ta sẽ thay đổi. Vì chỉ có Chúa Giêsu mới có quyền năng thay đổi cuộc đời quý vị. Chỉ cần quý vị tìm đến với Chúa, gặp gỡ được Ngài thì quý vị sẽ nhận được niềm vui, bình an, hy vọng và tình yêu đời đời. Hãy đến với Chúa Giêsu để được Ngài biến đổi cuộc đời mình. Và từ đây cuộc sống của quý vị sẽ hoàn toàn thay đổi. Không còn lo buồn, ưu phiền, nặng gánh ưu tư nữa. Chúa đang dang rộng vòng tay chờ đón quý vị quay về với Ngài. Nếu quý vị thấy cảm động và muốn liên lạc với chương trình Today Saved by Grace, xin vui lòng liên lạc qua email todaysavedbygrace@gmail.com. Tố Uyên xin sẵn sàng tiếp đón và giải đáp mọi thắc mắc cho quý vị. Cầu xin Thiên Chúa ban phước cho hết thảy quý vị và xin hẹn gặp lại trong những chương trình kỳ sau. Tố Uyên xin chào tạm biệt.
Gặp gỡ Chúa Giêsu biến đổi cuộc đời mình. Gặp gỡ Chúa Giêsu đón nhận ơn tái sinh.
Gặp gỡ Chúa Giêsu chân thành mình gặp mình. Gặp gỡ Chúa Giêsu nảy sinh tình lệ huynh.
Dòng suối nếu cạn tắt thì dòng sông mau cạn khô. Tình yêu không Giêsu, ôi tình yêu sao cạn cỗi.
Vì Chúa chính nguồn suối, nguồn yêu thương vô biên. Biển yêu thương nối liền cát hoàn đảo với đại dương. Tìm đến Chúa Giêsu, nghe lời mời dịu dàng. Hãy đến với ta đi, con nhận ơn thứ tha.
Ngài đứng đón giang tay trong chờ bạn từng ngày. Hãy đến với Giêsu, Chúa mang mọi sầu thương.
Vì
Chúa chính dòng suối được rạng soi trong màn đêm, để ai trong ô giờ mong được tha muôn tội lỗi. Tình ái Chúa rộng lớn vì yêu thương nhân gian. Tình yêu thương nối liền giữa con người với thượng thiên. Tìm đến Chúa Giêsu, nghe lời mời dịu dàng. Hãy đến với ta đi, con nhận ơn thứ tha.
đứng đón giang tay trông chờ bạn từng ngày. Hãy đến với Giêsu, Chúa mang mọi sầu thương. Vì
Chúa chính dòng suối được rạng soi trong màn đêm, để ai trong ô giờ mong được tha muôn tội lỗi. Tình ái Chúa rộng lớn vì yêu thương nhân gian. Tình yêu thương nối liền giữa con người với thượng thiên. Dòng suối nếu cạn tắt thì dòng sông mau cạn khô. Tình yêu không Giêsu, ôi tình yêu sao cạn cỗi.
vì Chúa chính nguồn suối, nguồn yêu thương vô biên. Yêu thương nối liền cát hoàn đảo với đại dương.
Vì Chúa chính dòng suối được rạng soi trong màn đêm, để ai trong ô giờ mong được tha muôn tội lỗi. Tình ái Chúa rộng lớn vì yêu thương nhân gian. Tình yêu thương nối liền giữa con người với thượng thiên.